Okay, so when we're looking for the slope of a line, what we're asking ourselves is, what's the rate that it's changing at? For example, if you come to work and it's say at 2 o'clock, the water in some tank is 12 feet deep and I'm pumping water into it. And at 4 o'clock, the water in the tank is 20 feet deep. Well, how fast is the water going up? Well, it went up 8 feet in 2 hours. So the slope is 4/1. That's pretty simple, right? That's what we're asking for. How much is y changing as x changes? How much is one changing in terms of the other? So there are three ways to do it. One is just to ask ourselves, if I went from here to here, how much did I go up? And how much did I go over? And the slope is up over, the rise over the run. The second way to do it is the traditional way. That involves a formula. You figure out how much you went up by subtracting the rise over the run. It doesn't really matter which one you put first, but you have to do them in the same order. If you start with y2, you have to start with x2. That's the traditional method. There's a formula for finding the slope. And then there's a third method I've seen, which in which you ask yourself, how much did it change? Not what the numbers are, but how much did it change? And one way to do that is by taking this line and moving it. If I take this line and just move it someplace, the slope hadn't changed. It's going the same direction it was going. But if I move it to where the first point is 0, 0, then it makes life real easy. So if I started with x1, y1, I have to subtract x1 and y1 to give me the point 0, 0. So if I take x2, y2 and do the same thing, I get my new point. And from 0, 0 to this new point, the slope is simply the rise over the run. That makes it easier. Just a different way to look at it. It's doing the same thing algebraically, just a different way to look at it. Let's look at this problem. Now, the common sense way says, okay, if my y number from 21 to 3, did I go up or down? Well, I went down. How much? Well, I went down 18. If my x number went from positive 2 to negative 1, did I go to the right or to the left? Well, from positive 2 to negative 1, I went to the left. And how much did I go? Well, from positive 2, if I go 2, I get to 0. So I went to the left 3. So the slope is negative 18 over negative 3, which I will not accept because I think that means you don't know is it positive or negative. It's 18 thirds. In an unsimplified form, it's 18 thirds. Of course, when we reduce that, we get 6 over 1, which is 6, but I think it wants you to leave it as a fraction. Okay, that's the common sense way. Let's look at this one. If my y number went from 6 to 4, did it increase or decrease? Well, it went down 2. If my x number went from negative 9 to negative 1, from negative 9 to negative 1, it went to the right 8. So the slope is negative 2/8, which reduces to, or simplifies to, negative 1/4. That's the common sense way to do those. Figure out how much you went up and how much you went over. Now, the traditional way, which is probably what you learned in high school, the traditional way says, all right, we're going to use a formula. And the formula says y2 minus y1. So that's going to be y2 minus y1, and your calculator says negative 18, over x2 minus x1. x2 is negative 1, 2, and your calculator will say that's negative 3. And once again, I think that means you don't know is it positive or negative. And a negative divided by a negative is indeed positive. So in unsimplified forms, it's 18 thirds, which reduces to 6 over 1. And that's the formula. Subtract the y's, subtract the x's. Let's do the formula here. y2, 4, minus y1, 6, over x2, negative 1, minus x1, negative 9. You might remember minus a negative is plus. So you have negative 2 over 8, which reduces to negative 1/4. And finally, the shift the line method. The shift the line method. I'm just going to shift the line so my first point is 0, 0. So if I add negative 2 and negative 21, that makes my first point be 0, 0. And if I do the same thing to the other one, add negative 2 and negative 21, that makes that point be negative 3 and negative 18. And so now that's easy. The run is negative 18, and the rise is negative 3. Remembering that a negative divided by a negative is positive. Let's look at the shift method on this one. I'm going to add positive 9 and negative 6 to make my new point be 0, 0. And if I add positive 9 and negative 6, this new point becomes 8 and negative 2. So the rise is negative 2, and the run is 8. So there are 3 methods. Use whichever one you like, and good luck.